2024 was a hell of a year, with so many good titles that I felt obligated to pick my favorites by assigning arbitrary awards. Starting off, let's take on the first of such superfluous categorizations with Best DLC. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. Best DLC? That's gotta be Shadow of the Erdtree, and you would be wrong. Did I enjoy Erdtree? Sure, but I doubt I'll ever play through it again. Plus, the final fight wasn't extremely satisfying given I had to completely change my build to compensate for it. Instead, I'm awarding the best DLC of 2024 to Blasphemous 2 with the Mea Culpa update. Why? Because replayability is important to me, and after this update, I played through the game again 4 times. The Mea Culpa DLC took what was previously about a 10 to 12 hour game and stretched it to 15 or more hours by extending existing areas to be much larger and added in a few additional boss fights that I thought were all exceptional. I absolutely loved this update, even beating the original New Game Plus mode in order to platinum the game again. And I'll probably even do another playthrough, given they recently overhauled how New Game Plus functions overall in a recent update. Long story short, Blasphemous 2 is even better now with the Mea Culpa DLC, so be sure to pick it up if you were already a fan. You won't be disappointed. Next up, we got the hardest boss fight of 2024.
Phase 3 is kicking my teeth in. After watching this, I don't think I'm even going to bother trying. It will take what's left of all my sanity. I can't do it. I accept that. Uninstall and move on. I don't have time for that. 5 hours. I spent 5 hours on this boss. If only I found this video sooner. Spent 3 hours on second phase just to find out there's a third. This boss fight is an example of how not to do an end boss. Nothing in the game prepares you for this. What a waste of my time.
You guys really hated this fight, and far and away for any of my boss fight guides this year, Igon from 9 Souls was definitely the most difficult. The reason why is mainly because there is no way to cheese this fight. It has 3 phases, and the boss herself has over a dozen different moves that she can chain together in any sequence. You're looking at many, many hours of practice before attaining victory, and most folks just don't have the stamina for such a spike in difficulty at the tail end of a game that was already difficult from the jump. The requirement on memorization was so steep here because she'd only give you a split second to recognize any of the dozen plus moves she's about to do, and also because the beginning of each new phase featured new moves that could one-shot you if you didn't know how to counter them correctly. That's a lot to ask of players, even for the most ardent of Souls-like veterans. While I certainly enjoyed the game, and enjoyed finally defeating Igon, I doubt I'll ever play through 9 Souls again because of this boss fight. Sure, Erdtree was tough, Wukong was brutal, but Igon takes the prize for the hardest boss fight of 2024. Moving on to Best ARPG/Souls-Lite. Speaking of Black Myth Wukong, it was definitely my favorite ARPG or Souls-Lite of 2024. Not necessarily a Souls-like, because it only featured a small amount of Souls influences, leaning more into the ARPG side of things than otherwise, but I loved everything about this game. From the world design, to the boss fights, to the cultural aspects, really everything about this game is incredible. I played through it multiple times, and I think getting to the end of New Game Plus Plus, collected every item and armor set, and even made some boss guides along the way. Now, I can't really say much more than what I already covered in my review of Black Myth Wukong, but be sure to check this one out if you somehow slept on it, as it's certainly one of the best games to come out this year. Next up, we got the Best Atmospheric FPS. Now, I'm not really big into FPS games anymore, maybe picking up 1 or 2 a year, but there's something special about Stalker 2 that I've been wanting to see in a AAA title for years, and that is a game without any of the typical, and loathsome, RPG mechanics. I've made videos in the past about how not every game needs to be an RPG, like Dying Light 2 or Dead Island 2, for example, as those shoehorned RPG mechanics really work to their respective games' detriment rather than elevating them to greatness. Basically, I hate arbitrary leveling systems between the player character and weapons, but even more so, I hate level scaling areas or enemies. And ever since Skyrim back in 2011, it seems like every AAA game needs to have some of these annoying RPG mechanics, and finally, GSC Game World shunned those terrible ideas to make something great. Stalker 2 is fantastic because it's basically Fallout without the RPG bullshit. Your entire drive throughout the game is to explore, sell loot, and upgrade your gear. That's it. No level scaling weapons, no level scaling enemies, and no level gating at all tied to exploration. You can go anywhere and prioritize anything you want right from the get-go. Now, is it perfect? Far from it. But it's certainly ambitious. And I love the atmosphere of traversing the zone, the horror of exploring underground bases and bunkers, and the hands-off approach to player progression. While I already beat the game a few weeks back, GSC apparently released a huge new patch that brings the A-Life system to the forefront, meaning your long treks across the zone will now be far from uneventful. Instead of very little happening between points A and B, you're bound to have to struggle to survive even more as you scrounge for every bullet and weapon upgrade you come across. So if you're sick of modern takes on the FPS genre and are looking for something without unnecessary RPG bloat, then Stalker 2 will easily give you the experience you've been waiting for. Most fun game of 2024. Lastly, we get to what I consider to be the most overall fun game of the year with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. As a kid who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I have a lot of nostalgia for the original Indiana Jones trilogy. And Machine Games absolutely captured the essence of what made those movies so special with the Great Circle. Not only is it faithful to the source material, but it's genuinely the most fun I've had all year playing a video game. And I mean that in terms of being engaging, featuring incredible level design, a pitch-perfect Indiana Jones story with an astounding performance from Troy Baker, moderate but far from soul-crushing difficulty for combat, because not every game needs to be Dark Souls level of difficulty, and probably the best overall performance of any game I've played this year. Seriously, id is killing it with their new id Tech engine. This thing blows Unreal Engine 5 out of the water. It's good to know the spirit of John Carmack is still alive and well at id Software, because I really would love to see more game developers adopt this engine over the stuttery mess that tends to be the Unreal Engine 5, seeing as nearly every implementation of that Unreal Engine is trash from a performance standpoint. Now, I've already played through the Great Circle twice and 100% it each time, as once I reached the end of the game, I just wanted to keep playing. It's so enjoyable with its absurd Looney Tunes-style combat as you scrounge around for any weapons at your disposal to bludgeon fascists, or the sheer awe-inspiring nature of exploring tombs and solving puzzles that, I don't know, it just never gets old. So I really found the Great Circle to be a fundamentally fantastic experience, and I cannot wait for DLC or what is hopefully a new trilogy of Indiana Jones stories in the not-too-distant future. So well done, Machine Games, and thank you for not fucking this up. So what'd you think of my best of 2024 list this year? And let me know what your favorite game of the year was down in the comments. I hope you all have a good holiday as we wrap up the end of the year, and I wish you all the best in 2025. Now that's all the time I got for you for this one, so I'll see you in the next one in the new year. Now you know what to do. Get the hell out of here.